You are in your car outside a 24-hour pharmacy at 10:14 p.m., staring at an $86 prescription and $74.19 in checking. Tomorrow is payday. You earn $96,000 a year. Those facts should not belong to the same life, but they do. Insurance rejected the claim because the refill was processed too early. You can pay tonight and request reimbursement, or wait for the clinic to correct the date. The medication is for your mother upstairs. She says she can miss one night. You know she is trying to make the decision easier for you. You put the prescription on a credit card. The charge goes through. Relief arrives first. Then shame follows it into the car. 6 months ago, when the hospital promoted you to imaging department coordinator, you believed $96,000 would end nights like this. You had spent most of your 20s earning less, working weekend shifts, and telling yourself that the next raise would finally create room. The raise came, the room did not. In your family, money does more than pay bills. It proves that all those years your mother spent working 2 jobs led somewhere. So you bought the newer car, rented the better apartment, and quietly covered family dinners. Each choice seemed reasonable on its own. Together, they gave most of your income a destination before payday even arrived. Tomorrow, your twice-monthly paycheck of $2,781 will reach your checking account after taxes, health insurance, and payroll deductions. Within 48 hours, rent, the car payment, the credit card minimum, utilities, subscriptions, and 3 automatic charges you barely remember authorizing will claim most of it. This illustrative story is not a forecast, guaranteed result, or personalized financial advice. Taxes, benefits, location, market returns, and timing create different paths for different households. The character is not a financial advisor, and the balances and timeline are not promises about your personal financial future. Your money already follows an order. The problem is that bills and pressure from other people are choosing that order for you. The most urgent bill gets paid first. The hardest request to refuse comes next. Anything that makes today easier gets funded. Saving and investing receive whatever remains. Usually, nothing survives. People talk about managing money like the top 1% as if wealthy people know a secret formula. Spend this much, save that much, then invest the rest. But no percentage can tell you whether your next dollar should stop a crisis, eliminate expensive debt, or buy ownership for the future. Here is the argument of this story. Managing money well is not mainly a percentage problem. It is a sequencing problem. You protect the risks that could break the plan, remove the costs that keep dragging it backward, and give the future a claim before lifestyle absorbs what remains. The sequence changes when your risks change. The principle does not. Over the next 4 years, you will rebuild that order while facing debt, a falling market, the risk of losing your job, and a crisis involving your mother that no spreadsheet can solve for you. But tonight, the problem is already clear. Someone earning $96,000 should not need tomorrow's paycheck to buy an $86 prescription. Chapter 1. Find the floor. The next morning, your paycheck arrives at 4:07 a.m. By the time you wake, your balance looks healthy enough to erase the previous night. That is how the pattern has survived. Every payday briefly looks like stability. You interpret several $1,000s as permission. Then, scheduled payments arrive, the image disappears, and you blame the month. This time, before paying anything extra, you download the previous 90 days of transactions. You expect to discover one ridiculous habit. There is no single villain. There are ordinary decisions repeated at expensive frequencies. Your rent is $1,925. The car payment is $568. Insurance is $184. The credit card minimum is $247. Utilities, phone, internet, and required work parking average $391. Groceries average $438. Gas and basic household purchases add another $276. Those are not all optional. They form the floor beneath your life, the amount required to keep housing, transportation, food, insurance, utilities, and minimum obligations functioning. Then there is the second layer. Food delivery cost $426 last month. Subscriptions and app renewals took $163. You spent $214 on clothing, not because you went shopping, but because 4 small orders never felt like shopping. A furniture payment you accepted at checkout still has 9 months remaining. 3 family transfers totaled $380. Some expenses bought time, comfort, or help for people you love. The problem is that all of them have been allowed to introduce themselves as necessities. You write 2 numbers at the top of a legal pad. Monthly take-home pay, approximately $5,560. Current essential floor, approximately $4,029. The difference is $1,531. Yet over the last 3 months, your average checking balance the night before payday was less than $100. Put that paycheck into a single bar and the problem becomes visible. About 72.5% of take-home pay is already committed to the essential floor. Another 21.3% went last month to delivery, subscriptions, clothing, and family transfers. That leaves about 6.3% for the furniture payment and every irregular purchase you did not name. This is where generic budgeting advice becomes too shallow. The chart cannot declare that 72.5% is universally too high or that every flexible expense is waste. It can show why your plan keeps failing. The margin has no deliberate job. The cause is not one irresponsible purchase. It is an unassigned 27.5% being claimed by dozens of separate decisions. Money without a purpose usually serves whatever feels urgent today. That missing space is the first useful fact you have found. A budget feels less like restriction than investigation. The paycheck is not disappearing. It is following instructions you gave casually, repeatedly, and sometimes months ago. You cancel the subscriptions you do not recognize. You keep the music service you use every day. You reduce delivery, but you do not make a fantasy plan in which a person working hospital shifts suddenly cooks 21 meals a week. Instead, you prepare 2 large meals on Sunday and keep money for 2 convenience dinners. The auto lender confirms that selling the car would leave you owing more than it is worth, so the car stays. You write down the loan's end date. The next vehicle will be chosen by total cost, not a monthly payment made to sound comfortable. Then you create one rule for family requests. You will still help, but support will come from a fixed monthly amount. When that amount is gone, the next non-emergency request waits. This is the first uncomfortable lesson. Compassion without a limit can become debt wearing the face of generosity. You do not cut your life to the bone. You make the floor visible and stop inviting every desire to live on it permanently. By the end of the afternoon, you have redirected $620 a month without giving up your apartment, abandoning your family, or pretending you will never order dinner again. But the legal pad also shows something a spending challenge cannot fix. Your card balance is $8,460 at 24.49% interest. Even a perfect month cannot create peace, while that balance is charging rent for the past. Knowing the floor tells you where you stand. The next step is to stop sinking. Chapter 2. Stop the bleeding without leaving yourself exposed. Your first instinct is to send every available dollar to the credit card. Mathematically, the instinct makes sense. A balance charging 24.49% is difficult for any ordinary investment to outrun. The faster the balance disappears, the less interest you surrender. But you have tried the all-out attack before. 2 years ago, you used your entire tax refund to pay down another card. 3 weeks later, a dental crown cracked. With no cash, the repair returned to the card. The system had left the bill nowhere else to go. So you separate the problem into 2 stages. First, you build a starter buffer of $1,500. It is not a complete emergency fund. It will not support months without income. Its job is smaller. Keep a tire, deductible, urgent flight, or prescription from immediately becoming new high-interest debt. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau makes the same underlying point. Without emergency savings, Even a small financial shock can turn into debt whose interest and fees outlive the original expense. You move $500 into a separate high-yield savings account and schedule $250 from each of the next 4 paychecks. It sits at an FDIC-insured bank, accessible but not attached to your debit card. FDIC coverage applies to eligible deposits within its rules and limits, not stocks or mutual funds. Safety and low fees matter more than a temporary promotional rate. While building the buffer, you continue the card minimum and stop adding new purchases. You remove the saved card from delivery and shopping apps. This adds friction, not morality. You are designing for the tired version of yourself, not the disciplined person who exists in a spreadsheet. Once the buffer reaches $1,500, the redirected $620 plus another $180 from a temporary weekend shift begins attacking the card. You use the avalanche method because this is your only revolving balance. Minimum payments continue everywhere, and additional money goes to the highest interest rate. Your younger brother, Caleb, chooses differently. He has 4 smaller debts and loses motivation when the highest interest balance barely moves. He clears the smallest first and carries the freed payment forward. It costs more in interest, but he continues. The mathematical plan minimizes cost. The behavioral plan is the one a real person can follow. What matters is that neither of you confuses debt payoff with punishment. The decision rule is simple. If one ordinary surprise would force you to borrow again, build a small barrier before attacking debt aggressively. Then target the most expensive balance unless a different order is what keeps you following the plan. Holding cash while paying high interest costs money. Rebuilding the debt after every surprise costs money too. You keep $120 a month for guilt-free spending. It feels wrong at first. You are paying 24.49% interest. Why should any money go toward enjoyment? Because a plan that requires 12 flawless months is not a plan. It is a temporary performance. The $120 is not permission to ignore the balance. It is a boundary around enjoyment. When friends invite you to dinner, you can say yes if the money is there and no if it is not. You stop alternating between restriction and a $300 weekend charged in frustration. 4 months later, the card falls below $5,000. Then your mother's elevator breaks, and she needs grocery delivery for 2 weeks. The old version of you would agree before finding the cost. The family support category covers 1 week. You fund the second from guilt-free money because this is how you choose to use it. The difference is subtle but important. You are not refusing generosity. You are making generosity visible before it becomes resentment or debt. At month 11, you make the final card payment. There is no dramatic celebration. You are eating reheated chili at the kitchen counter when the app updates to 0. The interest charge that once arrived every month simply will not arrive again. That absence is your first raise from the system. If you are deciding between debt, savings, and investing right now, which one makes you feel the most behind? Put it in the comments. The numbers may be different, but the conflict between them is more common than people admit. The card is gone. But becoming debt-free is not the same as becoming protected. Without a larger reserve, one bad season could rebuild what you just removed. Now, you need distance. Chapter 3. Build a runway, not a trophy. Advice about emergency funds often begins and ends with a number. 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. The number sounds official. Your life is not. Brooke is a tenured teacher with predictable pay, stable insurance, and expenses she could reduce. 3 months may protect her reasonably. Daniel is an independent contractor with seasonal income and self-funded insurance. An injury could stop both his work and income, making 6 months a starting point rather than an extreme. You work for a hospital system with steady demand, but you support your mother and have a car that is becoming more expensive to maintain. You choose 4 months of your updated essential floor. With the credit card payment gone, that floor is now about $3,782 a month, not 4 months of your current lifestyle. 4 months of housing, food, insurance, transportation, utilities, and minimum obligations. The target is approximately $15,100. For the first time, a large savings goal does not feel like a vague command to save more. It has a job and an endpoint. It also does not have to absorb every expense that surprises the calendar but not reality. Car tires will wear out, insurance deductibles reset, holidays return every year. If those predictable costs repeatedly drain the emergency account, the problem is not bad luck. They need smaller sinking funds of their own. You begin moving $90 a month toward car maintenance and $60 toward medical out-of-pocket costs. This slows the runway slightly, but it protects the meaning of the reserve. A sinking fund prepares for a known category with uncertain timing. An emergency fund protects against a disruption large enough to threaten the rest of the plan. The distinction is not perfect. A transmission can cost more than the car fund contains, and a medical event can exceed any deductible you expected. The goal is not to classify life flawlessly. It is to stop treating every irregular bill as if no one could have imagined it arriving. If a cost is certain to return but only its date or amount is uncertain, begin with a sinking fund. If the event could disrupt the entire plan, the runway is allowed to help. The money that had been going to the credit card now goes to the runway. You keep contributing enough to your workplace retirement plan to receive the full employer match. The Internal Revenue Service emphasizes that there is no universal matching formula. The amount, conditions, and vesting schedule come from the employer's plan documents. During the debt payoff, that contribution meant the runway grew more slowly. You accepted the trade-off because permanently giving up part of your compensation would not have helped the card disappear much faster. This is where rigid financial orders can fail. Someone with no food, no rent money, or a dangerous payday loan does not need a lecture about maximizing retirement accounts. Someone with a stable buffer and an employer match should understand the real cost of declining it. The order has principles, but the exact timing responds to risk. At $5,000, the account begins to change your behavior. You stop checking your balance every morning. You schedule a car repair before the noise becomes a breakdown. You decline an extra shift when you have the flu because missing one premium payment no longer threatens rent. At $9,400, the hospital announces a restructuring. No layoffs are announced. Leadership uses phrases like operational alignment and position review. Everyone in your department begins translating those words into mortgage payments. Your coworker Ethan immediately applies for 6 jobs. One offers more money but requires rotating overnight coverage. He accepts before asking whether his position is actually being eliminated. He has 2 car payments, a recent home renovation financed on a credit line, and less than 1 month of cash. You update your resume too. The reserve does not make you careless. It changes the speed at which fear is allowed to make decisions. You calculate how long the current runway could support your floor. You review health insurance options and the expenses that could pause. You do not need to accept the first escape route offered. The restructuring eventually removes an open management position, not yours. The reserve remains untouched. For a moment, you feel foolish for holding so much cash through a threat that never arrived. Then you understand the account already produced a return, not the interest shown on the statement. The return was the ability to evaluate choices without panic. Cash is not designed to maximize long-term growth. It is designed to prevent long-term investments from being sold and long-term decisions from being made at the worst possible moment. But cash can become another hiding place. Once your runway reaches $15,100, you stop feeding it automatically. You will adjust it when your essential floor or responsibilities change, but you will not keep accumulating cash because investing feels uncertain. The runway has an end. Place debt and reserves on the same chart and the shape of the system becomes clearer. The debt line begins at $8,460, falls below $5,000 around month 6, and reaches 0 at month 11. The dedicated cash line begins near 0, reaches the $1,500 starter buffer around month 2, passes $5,000 around month 15, and reaches approximately $15,100 around month 27. One line has to fall before the other can rise quickly. That is why the first year feels slow even when the plan is working. Net worth is improving, but the visible reward is split between eliminating a negative balance and building a positive one. The crossover is not a sudden transformation. It is the point where money stops repairing yesterday fast enough to begin protecting tomorrow. The next dollars need a longer future. Chapter 4. Buy ownership before you buy the upgrade. The first month after the runway is complete, nearly $900 remains available after your planned expenses. Your car dealer emails an invitation to trade in early. The message emphasizes a lower monthly payment and says nothing about extending the years you will remain in debt. At the same time, your hospital's retirement portal shows a balance larger than you have ever seen there. One offer gives you a newer object now. The other gives a future version of you ownership in thousands of businesses you may never see. Managing money like the 1% is often described as buying assets instead of liabilities. That phrase becomes useless when every purchase is forced into one of two moral categories. A reliable car can support income. A home can provide stability without being a perfect investment. A vacation can produce no cash flow and still be worth taking. The more useful distinction is between consumption you chose and ownership you postponed without noticing. You decline the trade-in, you increase your workplace contribution beyond the level needed to receive the full match, and you open a Roth individual retirement account after confirming that your income, filing status, and tax situation allow you to contribute directly. Inside the accounts, you choose diversified, low-cost index funds appropriate for a long time horizon. Investor.gov explains that diversification can reduce concentration risk, but mutual funds are not guaranteed or FDIC insured. You do not use the emergency fund to buy a market dip. You do not select an investment because someone posted a screenshot of a return. The transfer happens automatically the morning after each paycheck. This order matters. If investing waits until month end, it competes with every advertisement, invitation, and tired decision that arrived first. Automation protects a choice from being remade 24 times a year, but review it when income, dependence, debt, taxes, or the money's deadline changes. For 7 months, the account grows quietly. Then the market falls. At first, you treat it as news. Then you open the app and see that several months of contributions appear to have disappeared. The balance is lower than it was 6 weeks earlier despite every transfer. Your body reads the decline as danger. You consider pausing contributions until conditions become clearer. A financial commentator says, a recession is unavoidable. Another says, the worst is already over. Both sound certain. You return to the jobs assigned to your money. The prescription, repair, or job interruption money is in the runway, not the market. The money invested in diversified funds is intended for decades, not next winter. A decline is possible, recovery is not scheduled, and returns are never guaranteed. But selling because uncertainty arrived would abandon the reason the accounts were separated in the first place. The decision rule is to match the account to the deadline. Money required soon should not depend on a market recovery arriving on time. You keep the transfers running. You also stop checking daily. This is not confidence about what the market will do next. It is humility about your ability to predict it. Daniel, your self-employed cousin, makes a different reasonable choice. A major client delays payment, so he temporarily reduces investing while protecting his cash runway. He does not sell existing long-term investments. He changes the flow because his present risk changed. The system is not a purity test. Automation should reduce unnecessary decisions, not prevent necessary ones. By the end of the year, you cannot say whether the market has rewarded your discipline. You can say something more useful. Volatility did not recruit your rent money, and fear did not rewrite a long-term decision overnight. If this is changing how you think about money management, like the video and subscribe. The final act is where the system faces a choice that no percentage rule can make for you. Chapter 5. Cap the life, not the joy. 3 years after the pharmacy parking lot, your salary rises to $108,000. This time, you do not wait for the larger paycheck to explain what it wants. Half of the increase goes toward retirement investing and a future car fund. Some goes to your mother's support category. The rest increases guilt-free spending. Your life improves. You take a trip to Santa Fe with Brooke. You replace the mattress that leaves your back aching. You buy concert tickets without calculating the cost during the encore. None of those decisions is disguised as an investment. They are consumption, chosen honestly and funded before they occur. What does not change is more important. You stay in the same apartment. You keep the car. You do not convert the raise into 3 new monthly payments that will demand the next raise too. Lifestyle creep is not any improvement in life. It is the automatic transformation of temporary income growth into permanent obligation. A $200 dinner does not own next month. A larger apartment, an upgraded vehicle, a financed furniture set, and an annual membership can claim years of income together. Small purchases matter when repeated, but fixed costs decide how much flexibility survives. Compare 2 bars over 4 years. The first is one $200 dinner, expensive, temporary, and finished when it is paid. The second is a $400 monthly lifestyle upgrade. Before fees, price increases, or any investment growth the money might have earned, that recurring decision consumes $19,200. The point is not that dinner is wise and the upgrade is foolish. The chart measures how long each choice keeps voting in future paychecks. One choice costs $200 once. The other arrives 48 times. Before accepting a lifestyle upgrade, multiply the payment by the months you expect to keep it. Would you still choose the total if no one advertised the monthly price? Wealth is often protected less by eliminating pleasure than by noticing which purchases want permanent access to future income. This is also why the advice to stop buying coffee irritates so many people. A person whose rent consumes half of take-home pay does not have a latte problem. Cutting every small pleasure may create a small margin, but it cannot solve housing, childcare, healthcare, or inadequate income by itself. Your sister Olivia learns this when childcare for her 2 children rises again. She already cooks, drives an older car, and tracks every bill. There is no hidden $600 subscription category waiting to rescue her. Her solution is not harsher discipline. She negotiates 2 remote days, changes childcare arrangements with another family, and applies for a better-paying role. The process takes 6 months. During that time, her retirement contribution stays at the employer match, and her emergency savings barely moves. She is not failing the system. She is using it to identify the actual constraint. There is a limit to what expense optimization can do. After the leaks are closed and the fixed costs are addressed, income becomes part of the solution. Skills, negotiation, changing employers, or additional work can create room, but only if the pursuit of more income does not quietly destroy the life the money is supposed to support. You learned that lesson through years of extra shifts. More income helped. Exhaustion also increased delivery, convenience purchases, and the willingness to pay almost anything to make a decision disappear. Now you use money to support energy instead of repeatedly buying recovery from burnout. You pay for grocery delivery during the weeks your mother has medical appointments. You cook on calmer weeks. You keep the spending that returns time or meaning, and question the spending that only performs success for people who are not paying the bill. The goal is not to look poor while secretly becoming rich. The goal is to stop needing your life to provide evidence of either one. As your mother's medical needs and your essential costs increase, you reassess the runway instead of treating the original target as permanent. Over the following months, you raise it from $15,100 to $17,300. Then your mother falls. Chapter 6. When the system has to become a life. The call comes at 6:22 on a Wednesday morning. Your mother slipped in the bathroom and fractured her hip. Surgery goes well, but discharge planning introduces a new problem. She cannot safely return home alone. Insurance covers limited rehabilitation. After that, she will need help with meals, transportation, medication, and stairs for several weeks. The hospital where you work offers protected leave, but part of it would be unpaid. Your sister can help on weekends. Caleb lives 4 hours away. A temporary home care service is available, but the weekly cost is higher than your old rent. No budget category can make this easy. You sit in the rehabilitation center hallway with a notebook and face four choices. Continue working full-time and pay for more care. Reduce your hours and use savings. Ask your mother to move temporarily into your apartment, which has stairs she cannot manage. Or combine part-time leave, family help, and professional care. A few years earlier, the decision would already have been made. You would keep every shift, place care on a credit card, and solve exhaustion with more spending. The payment would choose the plan before you had time to think. Now the pieces have somewhere to stand. The runway can cover your essential floor during reduced income. The family support account can pay part of the home care cost. Your retirement accounts remain invested because this is not the only source of money you have. The guilt-free account pays for prepared meals during the weeks when cooking is unrealistic. Your fixed costs are still low enough that one smaller paycheck does not break the household. You take 4 weeks of reduced hours and 2 weeks of unpaid leave. Olivia covers weekends. Caleb handles transportation for follow-up appointments. You hire professional help for the mornings no one can cover. The runway falls from $17,300 to $10,840. Watching it decline hurts. For years, you trained yourself to feel progress when the number rose. Spending the reserve initially feels like reversing the work. Then you remember the purpose of the account. It was never a trophy proving that you were disciplined. It was stored time. You are withdrawing that time now. One afternoon, your mother apologizes for the money. She says she knows you have worked hard to get ahead. You tell her the truth. This is what getting ahead was for. Not to win a comparison. Not to produce a perfect savings rate. Not to reach a number that makes uncertainty disappear. To prevent a hard event from immediately becoming a bad financial decision. Your mother recovers slowly. You return to full-time work. The professional care ends. The first month afterward, you do not resume every transfer at its previous level. You rebuild the runway first while continuing the employer match. Then the longer-term contributions rise again. The chart of your finances would show an interruption, cash falling sharply, investing slowing, expenses rising. From the outside, it might look like lost momentum. Inside your life, the system worked. It allowed money to become care without turning care into years of debt. What the 1% principle actually is. 4 years after the night outside the pharmacy, you pick up another prescription for your mother. The cost is $112 because the deductible has reset. You still dislike the price. Managing money well has not made healthcare inexpensive or transformed you into someone who enjoys unexpected bills. You pay from the medical category and walk back to your car. There is no shame in the parking lot. No need to wait for payday. No credit card balance waiting to translate one difficult night into months of interest. Your salary helped, cutting waste helped, paying off debt helped, the emergency runway, employer match, automated investments, lower fixed costs, and permission to enjoy money all helped. But none of those pieces was a secret of the rich. The real principle was the order connecting them. First, you learned the floor beneath your life. Then, you built a small barrier between inconvenience and debt. You stopped the high-interest bleeding without designing a life no human could tolerate. You collected the compensation your employer was already offering. You expanded the barrier into a runway sized for your actual risks. You automated ownership so the future did not have to compete for leftovers. You prevented every raise from becoming another permanent bill. And you reserved money for joy because a life that can never be enjoyed will eventually rebel against its own plan. The order changed when life changed. During your mother's recovery, cash and care moved ahead of maximizing investments. When income returned, the sequence returned too. That flexibility is not a flaw. It is the difference between a financial system and a financial slogan. The top 1% do not all use the same budget. They do not share one emergency fund target, one portfolio, one tax strategy, or one definition of enough. Some inherited advantages other people will never receive. Some earn so much that ordinary percentages conceal more than they explain. Wealth does not prove wisdom, virtue, or superior discipline. What is worth copying is simpler. Money is directed before lifestyle absorbs it. Risks are separated from long-term goals. Ownership is accumulated consistently, and decisions are evaluated by what they cost in future freedom, not only by whether the payment fits this month. You are not in the top 1%. You may never be. That is no longer the point. You manage money this way because the benefit arrives long before any prestigious net worth number. It arrives when a repair does not become debt, when a market decline does not require selling, when a raise creates options instead of new obligations, when helping someone you love does not require borrowing from a future version of yourself. The night you earned $96,000 and could not comfortably pay $86, you believed the problem was the size of the paycheck. 4 years later, you understand the deeper problem. Every dollar had been assigned a job, just not by you. Now you assign the jobs first. Which job needs to move first in your life right now? Protecting the essential floor, building a starter buffer, eliminating high-interest debt, expanding the runway, or buying long-term ownership? Put the job and the reason it comes first in the comments. And subscribe for more honest stories about building wealth without pretending life will follow a perfect percentage.